Hello. I'd like to talk about genealogy for beginners. Um, if you don't have a computer, it's okay. The Otis Library allows you to use Ancestry.com for free. And there are other genealogical websites, but Ancestry.com is recommended. There's Genealogy Hound, there's Find My Past, there's numerous websites to do your genealogy. And if you're just starting out or beginning, Ancestry.com is free at the Otis Library. Otherwise, there would be a membership fee. First, they would want you a username, and you have your own password. You can use your email and make up your own password. So, another thing that you'll want is a pad and a pen, because some of this information you're going to want to write down. And to start out, using a computer is very helpful to find your ancestors. And there are other places that you can go to. There's the Hartford, in the Capitol, the City Hall, the Capitol there has many records. There's also the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Library at Flanders Four Corners. They have microfiche that you can go through and from different states and find the person or persons that you're looking for. So to start off, you would want the surname of an individual. If it's your father's name or your mother's maiden name. And if you know if your father was in the service, they have service records dating back to the Revolutionary War here in America. They have service records from the War of 1812, World War I, the Civil War in 1865. They have records from World War II. If you know the date that your father was born and the state, the year, you might find their Social Security. And another thing that you would like to have is a manila envelope or a folder, something that you can keep the copies of the records that you find on the computer. You can label your envelope or folder with the name of the ancestor, of the surname that you're doing the genealogy research on in your family. So for instance, on Ancestry.com, you'll type in a first name and a middle initial or a middle name. If you don't know it, that's okay. And Ancestry.com keeps the names that you have been researching. So it's like having a file of all the different names that you've been researching on your own personal site. And you'll have your own tree with your name, your parents' name, and it branches off to your father's parents, your great-grandparents, on down the line to your ancestors. So here it would state a place your ancestor might have lived. So I know that my ancestor lived in Virginia. So I'll put Virginia, and up comes Virginia, USA. And it has here birth year. So I don't know the exact year of this individual, my great-grandfather. So if it's exact, you know the exact date, you can put it. But they have here plus 10 or minus 10 years, so you can put that. And then they have here more options. Do you happen to know his wife's name? So, yeah, you can put your great-grandmother's name here. And then you'll search, and it'll automatically take you to all the records of the individual that you're looking for. So they have records and they have categories. Records are birth records, marriage records, death records. So when you come to something that you would like to use, you press on it on your mouse. And you don't have to be an expert typist to be doing this. You can search the keypad and put the name of whoever you're looking for. Jane Lee, or just print. And then if that interests you, something that came up on here, it could be a census, it could be a birth record, it could be a military record. And you can view it on here. And the original document, this one is a census dating 1820, United States Federal Census for Henry Lee. And this happens to be Georgia, but I wanted to look at it. And sure enough, there's Henry Lee on there. And you can save it, or you can make a copy. So in order to make a copy, you would hit print. And on here usually has a place where you can print. And when you print it, it'll come up on the printer. So with the copy that I made of the 1820 United States Federal Census, which has names that were in the family, records of free white persons, white slaves. So that record you can save, and you keep it in your manila envelope or your folder, and you'll have that to save. And you can also save it on your computer, or you can share it. You can share it by email, you can share it on Facebook, or you can share it on Google. Now, they also have, besides military records and Social Security records, they have census, they have wills. They have wills dating back to the 1600s, the 1700s. And in the wills, it tells you quite a bit about the family, who was in your family, maybe an ancestor that you were looking for. If it had a list of names that this person was leaving articles to, they would have the names there, and one ancestor you might find. So now, if I go to my family tree, and I look up one of these, in your family tree, you can go to the individual that you're looking for, and Ancestry.com comes up with hints for you. And a hint is a document. It could be a birth record, it could be a will, it could be a military record. Now, I have saved some hints, some documents, and one is a will. And what's interesting on here, now this has U.S. Quaker meeting records dating back to 1681. And I can view this, take a look at it, and in it is the original writing in a, this is about John Lee and Eleanor Lee. They accomplished their marriage by the assistance of a hireling teacher, they being first cousins once removed. So it's fascinating. Some of the stories and some of the documents you find, this dates back to the 1600s. And I can go back. And but this one, there's a will which Westmoreland County Wills, and this one dates back to 1759. And in it, it has things that he left his family, tobacco or silver, or a slave, farmland. And you'll find this throughout, this type of information throughout Ancestry.com, and different genealogy websites. They're extremely helpful, they're easy to use, and you'll find a new hobby in your genealogy research, and you can share this with your family. If you happen to know the town that your parent or your ancestor lived in, the state, the country, this genealogy website, Ancestry.com, will take you right to the area in the United States or the country that you're looking for that individual. So don't get discouraged. Sometimes you'll find different families throughout the country that are looking for the same family, and they will have family records on here that you can share with these people, um, and get ideas if you're stuck on, say, your great great grandmother's death record, that you would like to know. Somebody else through Ancestry.com might have their tombstone inscription, their epitaph, um, and you can get it from someone else, or else it will come up when you type in their the name and the state of the individual that you're looking for. So sometimes you'll come up with, for instance, a name like James Lee was common. So you might come up with a James Lee that was in another state. And so you'll want to use your pen and paper to kind of write down where another James Lee might have been born, Maine, for instance, and see his parents' name. But then after doing some research, you'll find out, well, that person isn't the same James Lee that I'm looking for, or the same per individual you'll find you might be looking for. So it's good to have a pen and paper to kind of jot down dates that come up when you're doing genealogy. So if you haven't gotten started doing your family research, I recommend you coming to the Otis Library if you don't have your own computer, because you can use this one for free at the Otis Library and get started. It's a great hobby, it's a great interest, and you'll find rewards just being able to see your own family members on the website, their birth certificates, marriage certificates. So I hope you get started with genealogy and enjoy it. Have a good time with it. Thank you. I'm here with Norwich's historian, Dale Plummer, and we're going to speak a little bit about getting yourself started on genealogy research for your family. And Dale, do you have any hints for people that are getting started on genealogy? Some tips that would help them?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to start with is yourself and your parents and grandparents. Get the information that you can from the vital statistics. So, for instance, most of us today have birth certificates that list our parents' names. Our parents have birth certificates that list their parents' names and where they were born, when they were born, and so forth. But as you go further back, those certificates are harder to find. You may run across a situation where you don't know the name of a grandparent or a great-grandparent. You don't know necessarily when they died, when they were born, the other vital statistics that you would have to look up. And that's where the library offers a lot of resources that can help you to track people down. It's a lot like a detective story.
Yes, it is.
And
What about how do you help people that get stumped on, say they live out of state? Now, a lot of people will find that if they have a revolutionary soldier, they were granted land out west. So a lot of the families that lived in the 13 colonies moved out west, say to Kentucky or Tennessee or Indiana or Ohio. And the families that are living there are looking for information about their ancestors that lived, say, in Connecticut, New York, Maryland. How can you help an individual, say, who lives in Texas,
Well,
and
right.
they're looking for information on maybe a great 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 grandparent?
Well, I think one thing is the Ancestry.com, which is an online database and search engine. They can access that online.
Mm-hmm.
It's a paid service, but
Mhm.
Otis Library, right here in Norwich,
Mhm.
has that. Pays for a subscription so that anyone can come in and use Ancestry.com.
Mm-hmm.
And look up, say, a specific person, a specific individual, using census records, military records, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is we also have the Hale Cemetery Index here.
Mm-hmm.
This was a compilation of all the gravestones and what they said on them through the whole state of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking up a particular individual, you can search that index by town and by cemetery, by name. We also have a wonderful index of the city-owned cemeteries here in Norwich,
Mm-hmm.
which would include, and that is right here on the computer here at Otis Library. So you can
Mhm.
look up Yantic, the Greenville Cemetery on Hickory Street, Oak Street Cemetery, and some of the other smaller cemeteries, alphabetically by name.
Mm-hmm.
That will tell you when that person died, when they were buried, the location of the particular lot in the
Mhm.
cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go out and look that up, and often, because families were usually buried together, that can help you to locate other members of the family. Another big resource for the 20th century and the 19th or the 1800s are the city directories. And these will list people alphabetically, but they give where they live in town,
Mm-hmm.
what their occupation is, where they
And sometimes
work.
they have the family members also in
Exactly.
the city directories, and you can get city directories on Ancestry.com also,
That's right.
and they will have sometimes the surname and their wife and the children listed also.
Exactly. And they will also sometimes tell you information. So for instance, here's an Albert Rondeau, 1921 directory, removed to Willimantic. Here's another person who removed to Canada. So sometimes it can help you find where they moved to from here,
Yes.
which can be a big help
Yeah.
if you're trying to locate them in a census record, if you know, well, they're in Willimantic or they're in Canada or, wherever.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how much they did travel and move. I mean, it must have been difficult to drive wagon, horse and buggy, or wagon, like some of the movies have of them going out west, but it did happen. And
And once the railroads are constructed, of course, it becomes
it was
very easy.
much easier for them to move from one location to another location. And this is how Ancestry.com, and there are other websites, and you'll find them here on the computer at Otis Library, and you'll find it very helpful to finding your roots and your ancestors.
Right. I think there are some other resources too here. The newspapers. We have the Norwich Bulletin on microfilm here, and that is partially indexed.